Mr. Carnegie's 3-year technical school, born of the needs of a simpler day, has become Carnegie Mellon University.
For 125 years, our hearts have been in the work, in technological innovation, in award-winning performances, in groundbreaking research. Our bold bets revolutionized industries and improved lives. We've pushed the boundaries of what's possible. Motivated by fearlessness and focus, we are persistent problem solvers and human-centered thinkers. Tackling complex issues, creating life-changing innovations, and making vital discoveries. From center stage to the surface of the moon, we redefine the limits of possibility. Our hearts remain in the work, in our communities, around the world, and even in the cosmos. Guided by our legacy, we look to the future, moving the world forward in ways that are, well, uniquely CMU. That's the power of the human spirit. That's the power of possibilities.
Please welcome Carnegie Mellon University's 10th president, Dr. Farnam Jahanian.
Well, good afternoon. It's so good to be with you. What a fantastic video, don't you agree? Yes. And what a remarkable 125 years it's been. It is my pleasure to be hosting our second President Lecture Series of the academic year and also kickoff event for our 125th anniversary of the university at our homecoming this weekend. Congratulations, everybody. You know, as Tartans, we're part of a community whose members have continually redefined the limits of what's possible. In fact, every watershed moment in our 125-year history can be traced back to the right people asking the right question at the right time. Our special guest this afternoon, Luis von Ahn, co-founder and CEO of Duolingo, is one of those individuals, and he has had an amazing career asking and answering the right questions at the right time. Luis, welcome back. Over 1,500 people registered online and also in person attending this, just in case you were wondering. We're really happy you're back. We're joined, of course, by members of our Board of Trustees, led by our Board Chair, David Coulter, members of our academic and administrative leadership of the university, including our Provost, Jim Garrett, as well as members of our community, our wonderful faculty, staff, students, and alumni. We're also fortunate to have several members of Duolingo from Pittsburgh team who are here with us, I understand, and four or five of them are right here. If you're still in the audience, would you please stand to be recognized? Luis, you brought a few people with you, didn't you? All right, here you go. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Finally, I'm pleased to share with you that we're also joined by two very special guests who are beloved both by Carnegie Mellon and by Luis. CMU Professor Emeritus Manuel Blum and also Professor Lenore Blum. Manuel, Lenore, happy to have you here. Thank you for coming back. Pleased to have you here. And thank you all for joining us. Now, a quick introduction about Luis. As I mentioned earlier, this is our second President's Lecture Series event of the academic year. When we launched this series back in 2023, we set out to bring world-changing leaders, thought leaders to our campus to share their insights on issues of emerging and preeminent relevance to our society. And of course, because we're Carnegie Mellon, many of these leaders have had a record of innovating and advancing technology for the benefit of humankind. Today's distinguished speaker is no exception. Luis von Ahn grew up in Guatemala. He earned his undergraduate degree in mathematics at Duke, and then found his way to CMU for graduate school. We'll talk about that, I promise. Luis studied under Professor Manuel Balam, earning a master's and PhD degree in computer science. After graduating, he stayed and joined a faculty of our computer science school. As some of you know, he invented reCAPTCHA, a company that was acquired by Google in 2009. While at CMU, Luis was advising a student named Severin Hacker, who joined Luis to co-founded Duolingo together. And again, we'll talk about some of that later. The company, of course, has offices a number of places, including in Pittsburgh. And to Luis, not only is serving as CEO of Duolingo, and Severin, of course, is serving as CTO. The company has grown magnificently over the last number of years, serves more than 500 million learners, everyone from C-suite executives to children in refugee camps. Luis has built a remarkable career around driving transformative changes to benefit society, and he's widely recognized as a leader who cares about the people powering his company. Now, when you step back and really look at Luis's journey, it's easy to be blown away by his ingenuity and, of course, his vision. And also, I should let him know that we're so grateful to have him as a member of our community. Of course, we're grateful for his capacity to harness the transformative role of technology to benefit society. Again, Luis, we're exceptionally proud to call you one of our own, and we're thankful for all that you represent as a leader, innovator, and entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Luis as he takes the stage. Come on up.
Hi. Hi. I'm, of course, very proud to be here. And I'm also very proud that Manuel and Nora are here. I've told a lot of people here, they are the reason I am in Pittsburgh. So I don't know if to thank you or not, but thank you. Okay, so I'm supposed to talk to you for about 15 minutes and tell you a little bit of the story of Duolingo, which I'm going to do that. And then we're going to go and have a fireside chat. So I'm going to tell you just roughly a very abbreviated history of Duolingo. We started Duolingo, like Farnam said. I used to be a professor here in computer science. And I had a PhD student named Severin. And we were looking for a PhD thesis topic for Severin. That's what we were trying to find something that we would work on together. Very quickly, we both realized that we both liked education. We wanted to do something related to education. Now, my views on education are very influenced by where I'm from. I'm going to show this. I am from Guatemala. This is a public service announcement. That is where Guatemala is, by the way. Also, important public service announcement. That is not where they keep the prisoners. Different place. Anyways, Guatemala is a poor country. And a lot of people talk about education as something that brings equality to different social classes. But I always saw it as the opposite, as something that brings inequality. Because what happens in practice is that people who have a lot of money can buy themselves really good educations and therefore continue having a lot of money. Whereas people who don't have very much money barely learn how to read and write, especially in poor countries, and therefore never make a lot of money. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do something that would give equal access to education to everyone. So this is kind of my views on education. Now, if you're going to do something related to education, you got to figure out what to teach. And what we started, after thinking for a while, we realized that what we wanted to teach was languages. And the reason for that was because of English. So it turns out English is this amazing thing. There's about 2 billion people in the world learning English. And it's because in most places in the world, knowledge of English can significantly increase your income potential. And actually, what's amazing about English is that it can directly improve your income potential. So for example, with math, I love math, but just knowledge of math usually doesn't make you more money. Usually you have to learn math to then learn physics, to then become a civil engineer or something. It's like multiple steps. Whereas with English, if you were a waiter and you learn English, you can be a waiter at a hotel and make more money. It's like very direct. So we decided we were going to do a thing that teaches English but if we're going to teach English, we may as well teach other languages. So we're going to do a thing that teaches languages for free. That's what we decided we were going to do. So we started working on it. We were actually both in the Gates building, and we started working on it there. It took us about a year and a half from the time that we started working on it to the time that we launched Duolingo to the world. In that time, I am a native Spanish speaker. So what I decided to do was that I was going to make the first Spanish course myself. It turned out the first Spanish was very Guatemalan Spanish because I made it. Then Severin happens to be a native German speaker. And so he made the first German course. Interesting tidbit, I later realized Severin is actually not a native German speaker. I was confused. He said he was a native Swiss German speaker, and I thought they were the same language. They're not. So our first German course was very much Swiss German course, which is also funny. Anyways, he made the first German course, I made the first Spanish course. And we had this bright idea. What we were going to do is we're going to learn each other's language through the thing that we were building. So this is what we started doing. So the idea was that I was going to take some German lessons in our computer program, and he was going to take some Spanish lessons. But then we ran into a huge problem, which is kind of I'm very glad we ran into this problem, but it was a huge problem at the time, which was I would come into the office every morning at like 9 a.m., and I would see him, and then I would ask him, so did you do your Spanish lesson? And he would be like, no, man, so boring. And I had the same problem. Learning German was just really boring. And so this is when we started freaking out, because we thought, well, if we can't even, we really care about this project. We're working on it essentially full time. When we can't even get ourselves to do it, how can we expect other people to do it? And this is when we realized the thing that I still believe to this day, which is that the hardest thing about learning something by yourself is staying motivated. It's just really hard to stay motivated. We couldn't even get ourselves to stay motivated. So what we did is we started trying to change Duolingo basically to be palatable to us. So we just kind of, and what that meant is we kind of turned it into a game. So we started, it used to be that the lessons were half an hour long. We made them 3 minutes long. We started putting progress bars everywhere. We started giving points. Anytime you did anything, you got points. And what that did is that it made it so that we actually wanted to start using it. We were actually using it. So that was great. So by the time we launched, Duolingo was a free way to learn languages that also felt a lot like a game. And it turned out that that combination was very powerful, because as soon as we launched, Duolingo became very popular. The week that we launched our iPhone app, that week Duolingo became the #1 app in the education category of all education apps, not just language learning. And it has remained there since. So for the last, 13 years in a row, every year, if you look worldwide, Duolingo is the most popular education app. Yes, I'm very proud of that. To get people clapping, one person has to say woohoo, and I got the Duolingo people there saying, good job, guys. Anyways, the same thing happened when we launched our Android app. As soon as we launched it, it became the most popular app in the education category, and it's very popular. I'll say one other thing that makes me very proud. There are thousands of apps in the education category. Duolingo accounts for about 1/3 of the revenue that is made from the education category today. So we're very happy with that. Yes. Okay. And there have been a lot of really amazing milestones across the way, because we have grown a lot. And I'll tell you a few of them that made me really proud. Probably my proudest moment at Duolingo happened a few years ago, which was I learned 2 things at around the same time that made me really proud combined. The first thing that I learned is that Duolingo was being used by refugees all across Europe to learn the language, Syrian refugees, to learn the language of the country they had moved to. And actually, it was also being used by the UN in their refugee camps to teach the refugees the languages of the country that had moved to. I felt very proud of that. But at around that time, I learned something else that combined made me even prouder, which is I learned that Bill Gates was using Duolingo to learn French. And the combination of this is what made me the proudest. Because you see, on one side, you have refugees whose net worth is essentially zero. And on the other side, you have somebody whose net worth is like $100 billion. And they're using the same system. I mean, it's very rare. Usually billionaires have better stuff. But in this case, really, it was the same educational system was being used by essentially the whole of socioeconomic spectrum. So I was very proud of that. And we've grown a lot, and we have a lot of famous uses. One of my favorite ones as of late is the Pope uses Duolingo. And for that, I feel really good about that, because I know I'm going to heaven. So I'm good, I'm done. Anyways, we've grown a lot. Let me tell you a few other just quick things about the history of Duolingo, and then we'll go to this thing. There's a story I'd really like to say about Duolingo is when we started making money. The first several years, Duolingo made no money. The way we supported ourselves was through venture capital. Our finances were very simple. We simply lost money. Like basically, there was no, Duolingo was just a free way to learn languages. Nobody paid us. We didn't have ads. We just kind of lost money. About 5 years in, so around 2016, it came time that we probably needed to find a way to make Duolingo self-sustaining. So I like to tell this story because it's kind of unbelievable in retrospect. I stood in front of the whole company, and I basically said, we got to figure out how to make money. And what's amazing is the reaction that I got from the company. Basically, nobody in the company wanted to make money. Everybody was like, why? And I had to say, well, how do you think I pay your salaries? And then they very aptly said, I don't know, but you've been paying them. I had to explain to everybody that you can't really raise venture capital forever. At some point, this becomes a Ponzi scheme. You just can't do that. So I had to explain that. But it basically took 6 months, about 6 months, to convince the company that it was OK to make money, that it was like not evil, first of all, making money, and that secondly, that if we actually make money, we can actually use that to invest more and furthermore our mission to actually educate everybody. So basically, Duolingo was it's the first, I don't know, however many people that were there were basically communists that we hired, and they're still there. So there was that, which was amazing. Now, fortunately, we found a way to monetize that I find is very compatible with our mission, because the way we found a way to monetize was you can use Duolingo for free. You don't have to pay us. But if you don't pay us, you have to see an ad at the end of a lesson. And we make money from those ads. But if you don't want to see ads, you can pay to subscribe. And we make money from the subscriptions. Now, it turns out about 90% of our active users do not pay to subscribe. They use Duolingo entirely for free. And 10% of our active users pay to subscribe. However, we make about 90% of our money from those 10% that pay to subscribe. So the vast majority of our money comes from these people that pay to subscribe. Now, if you look at who these subscribers are, they're basically well-off people. I mean, they're usually in richer countries, they have stable jobs, et cetera. And if you look at who the people who don't pay, they're usually in poor countries or may not have a job, et cetera. What I really like about this business model is that it's like a small form of wealth redistribution. Basically, the rich people are paying for the education of everyone. And this is how you convince communists to make money. Anyways, the last thing that I'll tell you is I think probably most of you have seen that Duolingo has also kind of become a part of culture in our memes. And I'll just tell you quickly, roughly how this started. If you've ever used Duolingo, we send you notifications to remind you that you should do your lesson every day. This is kind of what it looks like. You see, you get a notification. Now, the thing about notifications is something that is, like, in retrospect, really amazing. When you get a notification, it shows you the app icon right next to it. It turned out that our app icon is the face of an owl. It's our owl. So people think that the notification is coming from the owl as opposed to from the app. So it really looks like the owl is sending that to you. So that kind of gave the owl a voice. And we were sending notifications. Now, we are very nice in that if you stop using Duolingo, we don't send you notifications forever. After about 5 days of inactivity, we stop sending you the notification. At some point, it occurred to us that, well, we're being nice. We should tell people that we're being nice. So if we're stopping after 5 days, it occurred to us that we should, on the 5th day, we should send this notification to tell people that we're being nice, which is basically this. These reminders don't seem to be working. We stopped sending them for now. We thought we were being nice. It turns out this is an incredible way to get people to come back. It's like a super passive aggressive. This is like parenting passive aggressive right here. It's very successful at getting people to come back. But when we started sending this gave the owl a personality, because the owl is being passive aggressive. The owl is willing to do any kind of emotional manipulation to get you to come back. And because of that, the internet started basically making memes about how the owl will go through great lengths to get you to come back, like including kidnapping your family. So you started seeing all these memes like this one. This is a pretty funny one. this started happening. And then what we did is, as a company, we started leaning into this fun because it was pretty fun. So we actually ran a commercial that I'm going to play to you. I'll tell you a little bit about the commercial. Actually, let me just play the commercial. We made this commercial. So you'll see it. It's like a joke commercial, but we made it. And it's pretty fun. So let's play it here.
Has your family been taken by a corporate mascot? Were you extorted by an enormous green owl? Have you been physically or emotionally injured by Duolingo? Did you want to learn a new language but lost your streak and your loved ones? Did you receive disturbing threats such as Spanish or vanish, French or the trench, Japanese or broken knees? If you're a victim of the Duolingo owl, you're not alone. Hi, I'm Peter Francis Manchetti, attorney at law. Over the past decade, I've recovered 537 family members, friends, and precious pets from Duo. Now let me and my elite team of legal professionals at Manchetti & Sons LLC fight for you.
Learning a new language was supposed to be fun and easy. Well, if you've ever been thrown in the trunk of a car and driven across state lines by a huge green owl, you know that there's nothing fun and easy about Duolingo.
Duo took my family. Next, he took my Funko Pop collection. Manchetti & Sons brought my case to trial, and I won $2.7 million, which numbs the sting of never seeing my husband and children again.
Text or call Manchetti & Sons now at 781-STOP-OWL.
That's 781-STOP-OWL.
Manchetti & Sons, call for help right now at 781-STOP-OWL.
We had this idea that we were going to make this commercial, and we thought, okay, let's make like one of those crappy lawyer commercials. This was the idea that we had, and our marketing team approached a company that makes these crappy lawyer commercials, and we met with them, and we're like, so what we want is one of these crappy lawyer commercials, and they're like, what do you mean? And this is when we learned that was not going to work. So actually, this was made by a very fancy company, and they understood we wanted a crappy lawyer commercial. Anyways, I'm gonna stop now, and we're gonna have a thing because I see that Farnam has stood up there. And thank you.
Well done. Well done. You take that seat on the other side.
I had a lot more to say, Farnam. I'm kidding.
This was all rehearsed, I promise you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to
it's
have
a real
you
honor.
here, and congratulations on all that you've achieved and all that you've enabled. Let's hear it for Luis. A quick reminder for those of you who've been to these fireside chats that there's a Slido. Is it behind me? Not yet. It's coming. You can submit your questions. I'm going to go through a series of questions and have a conversation with Luis, but you're welcome to send your questions. And Bethany, who's sitting up front, she's going to curate the questions, and at some point, we're going to switch and take some of the questions from our audience. Luis, before I actually dig into some of the questions, I'm just curious. The commercial, the people in the commercial, are they Duolingo employees?
No.
They're actors?
No. These are all actors.
Okay,
and
good.
You know what?
I'm relieved.
It took us a while. I don't know if you noticed the son. Like his voice kind of broke as if he was like a. It took us a while to get that shot well because we wanted him. That was on purpose. Yeah.
It was well done. Well done. Before we talk about Duolingo and before we talk about AI and some AI specific questions, I want to ask you to tell us about your own journey. I mentioned that, of course, you're a highly successful CEO, but before you became CEO, you were on the faculty at CMU, and you came to CMU for a PhD. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Tell us about your upbringing and what brought you to Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, well, so I was born and I grew up in Guatemala. I was an only child of a single mother. At some point, the thing that got me into computers is at age 8, I asked for a Nintendo, and she got me a computer instead, a Commodore 64, and I was really upset. But that's kind of what I got into coding. I left Guatemala to come to college in the US, and then I came to Carnegie Mellon. I told you this story. I came to visit Carnegie Mellon. You know, when you're applying to the PhD programs, you apply to a bunch of PhD programs. You get into some, you get rejected by some. And I was very lucky to have gotten into Carnegie Mellon. But what happens is that they fly you in to visit this program. Now, I had never been flown anywhere, so that was great. I'm like, oh, I got flown by somebody to go somewhere. But that year, they decided that the open house for graduate students in computer science was going to be held in early February in Pittsburgh. I had grown up in Guatemala. It's always 70 in Guatemala. And then I went to North Carolina, where it snows like once every 2 years. And then I came to Pittsburgh in early February, and it was, after 12 hours of being here, I thought, I'm not coming here. This is just not going to happen, I told myself. But then I was very fortunate, Manuel, who is there, and Manuel is just a very charming man, who after the open house, I thought, man, Pittsburgh, but I'm going to go there. So the reason I decided to come to Carnegie Mellon was because of Manuel, so thank you, Manuel. And then I was very fortunate that I could be his PhD student. But that's what happened. And then when I was in the PhD program, we had a lot of fun. We did a bunch of good things. One of the early things that we did together was we had it's this thing called a CAPTCHA. I think most of you have seen it. The distorted characters that you have to type whenever you're doing, whenever you're getting like an email account online, etc. We worked on that with Manuel, and we were very fortunate that got adopted all over the place.
So how did that lead to reCAPTCHA and the interaction that you had with Google?
Yeah. So what had happened was, I was getting my PhD. We did this CAPTCHA work together. A few years. So by the way, if you don't know, so the reason the CAPTCHA is there, that those distorted characters, is that they're there to make sure that you're a human. So the idea is that these distorted characters, you can at the time, this has completely changed because computers are much smarter now. This is 25 years ago. At the time, computers could not read distorted characters, but humans could. So the idea was that if we gave that there and we put it there and we said read the characters, the system could tell if they read the characters, it actually was a human as opposed to a computer. And the reason that was useful was because there were people who would write computer programs to abuse systems all over the place. So for example, Yahoo was giving free email accounts. Somebody could just write a program to obtain millions of free email accounts. The reason the CAPTCHA was there was to make sure that it was a human, because a human can't obtain millions of email accounts because they get bored after like 10. So that was the whole idea for CAPTCHAs. Now, what happened was that a few years later, I did my PhD here. I finished the PhD, and I had joined the faculty. Throughout this time, whenever I went to like a party or something, people asked me what I did, and I told them that I worked on these things, and people immediately would say, "I hate you," because they're very annoying. Yeah. So I had been, it had been years of people kind of saying that they hated me. So it occurred to me that I kind of started thinking, well, how many times a day does somebody do one of these? And I did a little back of the envelope calculation, and at the time it occurred to me that, what the number that I got to was that it's about 200 million times a day somebody was doing one of these CAPTCHAs. So at first I felt very proud. I'm like, oh, look at that, look at the impact that we've had. But then I remembered that people hate these things, and then I started feeling bad. I'm like, oh my God, 200 million times a day, somebody's really annoyed. And each one of these takes about 10 seconds of time to do, and if you multiply 200 million by 10 seconds, that's like 500,000 hours a day are being wasted by this thing. And then I started feeling really bad. And then I started thinking, well, is there something that we can do? See, during those 10 seconds while people were reading these characters, at the time they were doing something incredible. They were doing something that computers could not yet do. So for 10 seconds, we were getting something from your brain that we could not get computers to do, despite, like, at the time, like 40 years of research in computer science. We could not get. So I was like, well, can we extract those 10 seconds for something useful? This is kind of what occurred to me. And this is where reCAPTCHA came. The idea with reCAPTCHA was that instead of giving you random letters to read, we would give you words that were coming from books that were being scanned that we needed the computer to understand, but that the computer had failed to understand. So we would send that to you, and then we would use what you would type, and then that would be help in the book digitization process. So that was the idea, and it turned out we built a system, and it turned out it worked. Yep. By now, by the way, reCAPTCHA has changed. It turns out that computers just got good at reading all of these distorted words, but there were still things that computers were not very good. So by now, you can see that with a reCAPTCHA, what you have to do usually is like click on the bicycle or whatever, but it's the same concept. You're being given images that the computer is not very certain about, and then what you're clicking on is being used to either train the computer or just actually label it. So that was the idea. We built a company around that. There's a funny story that I don't know if I've told you about this, but I think the statute of limitations has gone, so I'll tell it now.
None of this is being recorded, don't worry.
Okay. What happened was that when we built it, it was a company I started. I started the company. I was a professor, but I had a guy named Ben Moore who was an undergrad here, a really great guy. But we had a few basically Carnegie Mellon people that started this company called reCAPTCHA. And the idea was that we could serve CAPTCHAs to the world and help digitize books at the time. That was the idea. Now, we didn't have any books. So we had like the scan of one book, and we started just basically recycling the same scan of the same book to everywhere we were serving the CAPTCHAs. At some point, I gave a talk about this process, and somebody in the audience happened to be, at the time, the CTO of the New York Times. And then he came to me and he said, we have a whole archive of all editions of the New York Times. We cannot scan it, because, we can scan it, but computers can't really recognize the text. Can you do something about it? And I'm like, sure we can. And that was perfect. Now we had something that we could actually recognize. But then he said, well, how much should we pay you for this? And that hadn't occurred to me. And I was like, okay. So I went and I did a calculation of how much it would cost them to do it by hand. I'm like, well, the other option is to hire people to do this. So I kind of figured out how much it would cost it by hand. And then I divided that by 4. I made up 4. I divided that by 4. And then I went to him and I'm like, this. It was basically what it was. It was $42,000 per year of content of the New York Times that we would charge. That's what we decided. He agreed immediately, in which case I was like, damn, I should have divided by 2 instead. Anyways, he agreed immediately. But what was crazy is we were serving so many CAPTCHAs that it took us about 1 week to do 1 year of content. And so we did that. We gave it back to him, and he sent me a check for $42,000. And they were like, okay, well, here's another week. And so I started receiving checks for $42,000 from the New York Times. And very quickly, somebody from Carnegie Mellon, like a suited person from Carnegie Mellon, came to remind me that Carnegie Mellon is a nonprofit and that we can't do work for hire, and that I need to do something about that, and I can't just be getting. So this is why reCAPTCHA turned into a company, because there was like a way to actually get those $42,000 every week. That was it. But I don't know. I feel like I've repaid Carnegie Mellon for that.
I think it's fair to say that you repaid Carnegie Mellon. Let's just leave it as that. Has it occurred to you that your current employees, when they were asking you why should we make money, they weren't too far off from your own views of the world?
No, it was pretty similar. I mean, look, we as an academic, that's just not the first thing you think about. Yeah, that's true.
You know, this is probably a good place to pivot to AI, because when you talked about digitization of books and so on, I remember 20-some years ago, this was a big deal. This really was a massive Google project and a number of others that really has had such a huge impact. When we talk about a massive amount of data, a lot of that data initially came from digitizing content that we had available on paper, and it took off. Now, of course, AI has changed everything. What I want to talk a little bit with you about is that throughout the history of AI, we've gone through these cycles of excitement about AI and then winters of AI. In fact, in my career, I know I've seen at least 3 cycles of that. I know Marshall would agree with this. But today it seems different, especially when we talk about generative AI. It seems like we're in a different era, and the technology underlying it and advances that we've made are really different from what we have experienced in the previous 2, 3, 4 decades. Now,
in that it now works.
Now it not working. But candidly, that's the nature of research, which doesn't happen in a straight line. So tell me about, from your vantage point, especially from where you are at Duolingo and your experience as a computer scientist, what's different about this latest generation of AI systems that we have comparing to the earlier generations? And then I want to talk a little bit about Duolingo.
I mean, I feel weird talking about AI here with so many AI experts that I assume you have. But it's incredible. 10 years ago, I did not expect that this was going to be so fast. I think this is true for most everybody. I don't think people were expecting this level of quality by now.
Right.
When I first saw what later became GPT-4, I mean, it was just incredible. I did not expect anything that good for a while. From our vantage point at Duolingo is we're very happy with it because it's allowing us to do a few things. The biggest thing it's allowing us to do with Duolingo is that one of the things that we were never able to teach you before generative AI was kind of back and forth conversation. We could teach you vocabulary, we could teach you grammar, we could teach you all kinds of things, and how to listen to the language with speech synthesis, etc. We could teach you a lot of things, but we could not teach you back and forth conversation, and that's a real important thing to learn for a language. We actually tried before this. We tried 2 separate approaches. One was we tried before generative AI, like a chatbot approach. It didn't work. I mean, basically, it was really lame to talk to the thing. It just kind of didn't work. We also tried having an actual human on the other side for people to talk to and practice conversation. And this is one of the most incredible things I've seen, too. It was, you would ask Duolingo users, what do you think is missing from Duolingo? The most common answer was practicing conversation. That is what people said. Then you would say, okay, so if you tell me that there's a way to practice conversation on Duolingo with another person, you would do it. And everybody's like, absolutely, I would do it. And then you would even say, would you pay for it? And everybody's like, oh, of course I would pay for it. So that way I would practice conversation. And then the next question was the most amazing one. You would say, okay, you want to do it right now? And invariably, people are like, not right now. Not right now. It just turns out people, even though they may tell you that they want to practice language with another person, they don't. It's about 90% of people they're just not extroverted enough. They're kind of ashamed of their level of language. Right. If you're just a beginner in a language, you don't want to practice with another person. So this is why we gave up on that. But with generative AI, we can actually have you practice conversation with essentially a cartoon on the other side. And people don't feel like the computer is judging them, even though it's basically what it's doing. It's judging them. But people don't feel like that. So it's been very transformative to us.
I think you're absolutely right. We're just scratching the surface because you can imagine how it's transforming education. And we're just beginning to see that in all aspects of it, not just teaching AI, but more importantly, how AI is being used to teach other disciplines and integrate it much more deeply into the curriculum and also potentially changing pedagogy. As you know, CMU has a long history of work in the area of science of learning. I'll come back to that in a second if we have time for it. But I want to go back to Duolingo and your business model, and particularly with the current generation of AI. A lot of work that you did years ago, of course, depended on crowdsourcing, and that was a big piece of it. So have generative AI changed your approach to the business model of Duolingo? You briefly alluded to it, that the business model has evolved. I'm just curious whether this new generation of AI systems, what kind of effect it's going to have on your business models moving forward?
Yeah, there's a couple of places where it has helped us business-wise. The first one is it has helped us. If you need to learn something, one of the things that you need in order to learn is kind of like the content to learn, like the curriculum and what the actual content is. All of that was mainly done by hand, 3-4 years ago, and more than that. We basically did it by hand, and that was both slow and expensive. Most of the content that we generate now is being generated by AI. On the business side, many people are like, oh, you can save costs. And sure, you can save costs, but what's most amazing about it is that we have managed to increase the speed of content generation by I don't know the number, but it's like 20x. We're able to generate the content just way faster. So things, at this point, we have way more content that we thought, 2-3 years ago, we thought this was going to take us like a decade to get to this point because at the speed at which we're generating content. So we're very happy with that. And then the other place that it has helped us with in terms of our business model is people are willing to pay for practicing conversation with our, we call it video call with Lily is the feature. People are willing to pay for that, and that has actually really helped our business model. We're able to charge a premium for that. And it turns out we're one of the few companies that can actually make money from AI. There's a lot of things that people are saying with AI, but not many companies are able to make money from it. For us, the usage of AI is actually profitable, as in however much it costs us to do a video call, we make way more from what we charge the user. So we're able to make money from that.
That's really impressive. When I talk to leaders of global companies, often I ask them to share about a misconception about the company. I want to give you that opportunity. When you think about Duolingo, when you think about what people think of Duolingo, is there one or two messages about Duolingo that you may want to share with us that would surprise us?
I mean, there's a number of misconceptions. I think of late, one of the ones, I'll say one of the things that happened a few months ago, I posted a memo about our usage of AI, and it went a little viral because people interpreted something that I should have been more clear about. They interpreted as, I basically said that we as a company need to adopt AI everywhere we can. People interpret it as I am going to lay off the entirety of our staff and just have AI do our work. And we got a lot of negativity because of that. I think a major misconception that people have is that we have employees. In case you didn't know, we have employees, and we have not laid off anybody. We've never done a layoff of a full-time employee, so that's a major misconception. But at a larger scale, kind of more general, I think look, me and my job, I have to serve multiple constituents. It's similar to you. You have multiple constituents, like you have students, you have whatever. I have users, that's a constituency. Investors, because we're a publicly traded company, and employees. They're like three different buckets. And now, this is, of course, a generalization. It's a kind of a caricature. But this is what each of these groups wants. Investors, what they want is for us to extract as much money as possible from our users. This is a caricature, but that's roughly what they want. Users, what they want is to get everything for free. Employees, what they want is that we give everything for free, but also to become millionaires. Like that is kind of what everybody wants. Now, of course, you cannot make everybody happy, but I think the misconception is that each one of these groups, I don't think realizes how much care we spend trying to cater to them and to do right by them. So in the case of users, I don't think they realize how much internal discussions there are that we are like, no, we need to continue giving education for free. We need to do the free product really good, et cetera. For investors, I don't think they realize how much we spend about like, no, we need to do right by investors. We need to do, we need to monetize, et cetera. So I think it's just each one of these three groups has a misconception that we don't care about them, but we care a lot about them.
I suspect your users all know you care about them. And I suspect that...
Have you gone to our subreddit? Because I don't think so.
Really?
See, the Duolingo employees are there, and they're like, I don't know.
Have you seen what they write about the university and university presidents online?
I have
I'll send you some of my email messages.
Kudos to you for not going to any Congress things or anything.
Testifying, you mean?
Yeah, no testifying. Kudos to you for not getting fired.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, half of my board is sitting here, so.
He's good.
So actually, you brought up the workforce, and you brought up, in fact, the misconception about AI and potential impact of it on the workforce. Of course, one of the concerns that exists, I'll quote for you something that I read in Harvard Business Review just recently, that the half-life of skills is now less than 5 years. Wow. And in fact, half-life of many technology skills these days is 2.5 years. Well, not a surprise. When you think about the role of AI and some of the emerging technologies on the labor market, not on Duolingo per se, but really about on the economy, given the individuals that you interact with and the circle of your friends. How should we be thinking about it? Because clearly the future of work is in flux. We know some jobs are going to be lost, some jobs are going to be transformed, and some new jobs are going to be created. What's your take on it in terms of the impact of AI on the labor market?
I'll tell you a few things that we think about at Duolingo. So first of all, internally the way we think about AI is as an accelerant for our effort, not as a replacement for humans. We have not really seen a place where you can really replace a full-time employee with AI. It's just kind of not good enough yet for that. It's incredible, but it's just kind of not good enough for that yet. Sure. But it can definitely accelerate. So we see it as an accelerant, and we're trying to get everybody in the company to adopt AI as much as possible. One of the things we did over the summer is we actually made it so that I think it's essentially 100%. Hopefully it's 100%. But the idea was that 100% of our employees, and this is not just engineers, people from HR, people from the finance team, 100% of our employees should have vibe coded. So basically written a program with AI. And we did that. I believe 100% of our employees have now written programs, even though they didn't really know how to program before, many of them. They have now done that. So we're trying to train all of our employees to do this as much as possible. And I think the idea is that we're gonna be needing to reskill people often. That's my guess. The other thing, I'll tell you one thing that we do that is maybe a little contrarian to what's being said in the news. In the news, there's a lot of news articles that are saying large companies are not gonna need to hire college grads anymore because who needs them? They're like, you gotta train them, et cetera. And anyways, AI can do what college grads can do. You can see that. I feel very contrarian against that. We are doubling down on our hiring for college grads because if you ask me, if what you want is people who are going to be really, first of all, kind of more AI native, and secondly, a lot more willing to accept change. And I'll just speak for myself. I will not speak for others. But as I get older, I accept change a lot less, I will tell you that. So we're doubling down on hiring straight out of university, and our belief is that we'll be able to, if need be, retrain them over time. But right now we just haven't seen full need for retraining. But that's what we're doing.
Bethany, just a warning, I'm going to come to you with some questions. Are you ready for me?
I should have said we're hiring.
Yeah. We'll come back to the hiring in just a moment. But Bethany, why don't we start with one or two questions from the audience?
Sure. First question. During the 5 years that your company wasn't profitable, what made you keep going? And was there a pivotal moment that sticks out to you that made you keep going?
What made us keep going is the same thing that makes me keep going now. Is I think we really can affect the world positively through education, and I think that's what kept everybody going. We really, we touch a lot of people. We literally touch more than 100 million people, and mostly for positive reasons. So that's what kept me going. I'll say one thing that was, this is not from those 5 years, but that I just learned. I'll just say it because I just learned it. Last year, we launched a bunch of different courses for basically, think of it as, it's not exactly this, but think of it as courses between European languages. So it's like learning Italian for Hungarian speakers. Or we launched a lot of these courses. We didn't launch the cross products, so we didn't launch all combinations, but we launched about 80 courses for different combinations of European languages. And somebody did a study, not paid by us or anything, I just saw it for the first time. Somebody did a study that showed that after a year of us having done that, the desire to move to that country increased by 45%, like globally in each one of these countries for the courses that we had. We are actually affecting mobility in the world. And that's the type of impact that we have. So that is what keeps us going, that we see that we have real impact in the world.
That's fascinating. Bethany?
Duolingo has positioned and prided itself as a Pittsburgh-based company. What is it about being in Pittsburgh that gives it a competitive advantage?
I'm very happy with us having started in Pittsburgh. We, of course, have offices in other cities now, but our largest office and our headquarters are in Pittsburgh. There's a couple of things that I think have helped us a lot being in Pittsburgh. I think one, is that, education has not been one of the sexy things that technology attacks. It's not like education anymore. We're not like cryptocurrencies or like whatever. We're like, education has just been education. And I feel that had we been in, a larger tech hub, call it like Silicon Valley or something, I feel like we would have probably pivoted to one of the hype things, whereas we've been able to remain steadfast in our commitment to education without just all the noise. I think that has actually helped us. The other thing that I think helped us, certainly early on, was we were, I think, able to hire kind of above our weight. Many of our, particularly people in our executive team, had we been in a larger headquarter in like New York or Silicon Valley or something, when we were a smaller company, they probably would have taken a different job, not our job, but we ended up being able to hire people that just happened to have to be in Pittsburgh because they had aging parents or a kid or something like that. One of my favorite stories was our first CMO. The reason we were able to hire her, she had been the head of marketing for all of Nintendo. We're a much smaller company than Nintendo. And she became our CMO. And the reason she became our CMO was because she was a mother of a single child who got accepted at Carnegie Mellon, and she moved here, the poor kid, but she moved here to be with him, and then she's like, this was kind of the best job in town. So I think that has helped us quite a bit.
I have to tell you.
But thank you for accepting said child. I don't know why you did that, but I'm sure he's smart.
I have to tell you, I hear this a lot. A lot of parents move to be closer to their children. What they don't realize is children are trying to get away from them.
They don't realize that.
Usually about a 2-3 hour distance is a right amount. Anyway, we're on topic of the education. I want to highlight something. First of all, there are not a lot of companies that are in the education and technology space that are as successful as Duolingo has been. It's quite remarkable because if you look at education, every 10 years or so, there's some new gadget, and we believe it's going to transform education. In fact, CMU, as you and I have talked about this, has a long history of doing research in the science of learning. This goes back multiple decades, at least 5 decades of research in this. 30 years ago, we believed that if you give every kid a laptop,
magically they'll learn.
Yeah, magically. And then it was, everybody needs internet connectivity. Then that will change education. And in fact, the point you were making about if Duolingo was somewhere else, you remember the craze around MOOCs just 10, 15 years ago, where everybody believed that, in fact, again, MOOCs is going to transform education. But fundamentally, I think what most people miss is that we have to look at the role of technology in enhancing learning outcomes. And what's remarkable about Duolingo is very similar to the way CMU has approached science of learning. It's really being able to measure and demonstrate that technology can be used to improve learning outcomes and make it much more adaptive, much more personalized. All of those, candidly, attributes that we look at that transform education, that's at the core of what CMU science of learning is, I see it actually in Duolingo.
Oh, thank
you.
And,
quite impressive.
It is. I now understand what you mean. When we started Duolingo, I truly thought, how hard can it be to teach a language? Because you think these things, you're like, well, in the 80s there were these cassettes that taught you a language, so how hard can it be? Turns out those cassettes didn't actually teach you the whole language, they just taught you like greetings and stuff. It turns out that in order to teach a subject of substance, you need hundreds, if not thousands of hours of interactive content of some sort that is high quality, that needs to keep people engaged, etc. And I now, again, after more than 10 years of working on this, I now realize that, teaching something really well is kind of as hard as making a self-driving car or something. It's really hard. And I did not realize that. I now understand that after 10 years of banging my head against the wall. Yes.
Which was remarkable is that also the way Duolingo approaches it is it's adaptive because individuals learn at different rates and pace.
Yes.
I may be able to learn certain subject very differently from you. You might be much faster at it. And Duolingo is essentially mastering that insight into learning at different pace and make it much, much more adaptive. Luis and I were talking right before we came on the stage about their interest in hiring individuals who are working in the science of learning, in addition to all the hiring you've done. So this is for the community at Carnegie Mellon. Given the kind of research we do, given the kind of students that produce, I have to tell you, this is advertising for Duolingo, by the way. They have interest. They have interest in hiring individuals. They hire great computer scientists, of course. I'm sure, hiring great user interface designers and so on and so on. But they're also interested in science of learning. Can you tell me a little bit about where that interest comes from? I think we briefly touched on it.
I mean, look, we are pretty good at teaching, but we can be a lot better. Our goal is, the best way that humanity knows how to teach is with a very competent one-on-one tutor, human tutor. That is, if you are infinitely wealthy and you want to learn something very quickly, you go and you hire yourself a one-on-one tutor and you get them to do, as many hours as possible. That is known. It is known that does much better than a classroom. That it's just how it works. However, of course, that's very expensive. Also, it has the problem that you do need to be very committed for this. Like, you got to put in the hours, etc. But our goal is to be as good at teaching and hopefully even more engaging than a one-on-one tutor. That's the goal. We're not there. We're nowhere near there. But I want to get there hopefully over the next decade, and we need people to help us do that. And one of the things that we're finding is that it's hard to find these people. I mean, there's just not very many people in the world that have thought that deeply about how to teach, particularly how to teach with technology. There's a lot of people that have thought a lot about how to teach, like, as a human teacher, and they've done a great job, and this is great. And there's a lot of knowledge about that. There's just not that much knowledge about how to get a computer to do it. And by the way, I really want to, because I get in trouble every time I talk about this. Our goal is not to replace teachers. I just want to make that clear. Teachers serve incredible. I was a teacher here. They serve a lot of incredible jobs. But our goal is that, a combination of a teacher and the computer can do much better than just the teacher or the computer alone. And also, it turns out that a large fraction of humanity doesn't have access to a really good teacher. Exactly. So we want to be there for that.
That's such an important point you're making. You're so right about this. It's not about replacing teachers. It's actually providing better outcome as far as instructions are concerned. But furthermore, being able to do it at scale.
Yeah.
What we're not able to do, even in this country, as rich as we are, we're not able to provide a tutor for every student in K through 12. So if we're able to use technology, and this is really at the core of what CMU's research in science of learning is, if we're able to use technology to provide essentially something that gets as close as having every kid have their own tutor, we could potentially transform education. I want to go back to Bethany and take a couple of more questions from our audience. And somebody's going to tell me we're out of time at some point, right?
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, great. So we have about 10 minutes or so before we wrap up. So,
I had forgotten how universities work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bethany, let's take another question.
Going off of what you were just talking about, we have a question. What kinds of capabilities has Duolingo been able to introduce based on what it can learn from folks who are using the platform?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. When you use Duolingo, we know every single exercise we give you, and we know whether you got it right or whether you got it wrong. If you got it wrong, we have a relatively good idea of why you got it wrong, and we get billions of these exercises. I mean, it's like a billion a day or something like that. It's actually a little more than that. Every single day, we have that data. And we use that data to give people the right exercise, certainly in terms of difficulty. So we're doing quite a bit of that because we can measure that.
That's great.
It's back.
Okay, I have one that I know the answer to, so I'm going to ask it. Duolingo is primarily a language education company. Do you have any plans to venture into teaching science or mathematics?
We teach math, people. Whoever asked this should know. I'm kidding. So, okay, we are. Yes, we primarily, the vast majority of our users, of course, are learning a language. That is, it's called Duolingo. There's a language in there. So yes, we mainly have taught languages, but about I don't know how long ago, 4 years ago or so, we decided that we wanted to, we are doing so well in language, and we believe that many of the things that we do with language, we can put in other subjects, and we believe we can teach other subjects well with a mobile app. So we started math. So we teach math. Then we started with music. So we also teach music. And as of about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months now, we also teach chess. So we have math, music, and chess. We'll likely do other subjects. At the moment, we are not working on any other subject, and it's not like I'm being secret or anything. We're literally not working on any other subject at the moment. I would love to be able to teach science. What I'll tell you is that I've been wanting to teach science for a while, and in the meantime, we added a music course, and I really wanted to teach science after that, and in the meantime, we also added a chess course. So I don't know if the next course we add is science, but I would like our next course to be added to be science. But you see how much people listen to me. It is just not what has happened.
Bethany, thank you for leading the witness. That was really good. I want to pivot to a slightly different topic. In addition to, of course, being on the faculty at CMU, and of course, you're an alum of Carnegie Mellon, you just finished serving on a presidential advisory board for enterprise creation.
For said president.
Yes, for CMU and industry engagement. This was co-chaired by Teresa Meyer and Ron Bianchini, who is a trustee and a former faculty, and came back with some amazing recommendations for which we're grateful for. First of all, thank you for serving on this committee, which included a number of alum and few members of our community on the faculty as well. But if you step back, what advice do you have for CMU when it comes to technology and transfer and engaging with industry? I preface that by saying that you're an incredibly successful technologist, a successful CEO who has a very different lens from most of us.
Well, I'll say I think CMU has, over the years gotten better at this, or certainly much better than when I started as a PhD student. Lenore is here. She started this thing called Project Olympus, which was really, really quite transformative, I thought. I mean, I think it's just, it's a matter when different people speak different languages, and I don't mean like French versus Spanish. I mean like at a university, there's like, it's like certainly at Carnegie Mellon, it's like the research language. That is like, certainly in computer science, it's like the research language is the language that is being spoken. It's not entirely compatible to the business language. And I think the more we can do to bridge these things, the better. We were just doing an interview upstairs, and I was saying, one of the things about working between companies and certainly companies and universities working together is that there's a little bit of a mismatch in the language. And again, I'm going to use a caricature of what happens. So if you talk to people inside of Duolingo, we want to work with a university. Like everybody at Duolingo, we want to work with a university. That's a thing people want. If you talk to people at university, they want to work with companies. Like that is a thing people want. However, they kind of can't speak each other's language, because what happens is that the people at a university are like, yes, I want to work with companies, okay? And then they say, yes, what I want from them is money and data. Like that's what they'll tell you. I want their money and I want all their data because I can do my research with that. Great. On the company side, we don't want to give either money or data, and we're like, well, what we want is for them to just solve our problem that we have. That they may not even care about, but we want you to solve our problem. So it's this funny thing that we have to find something in the middle, like a middle ground that allows people to do that. So that's certainly for working with companies. In terms of starting companies, I really like that anything having to do with Tepper and computer science getting together, etc. You do need a kind of a business mind and more of a technical mind. So I really like any kind of collaboration there.
I think you're right that CMU has come a long way, and of course Lenore has played a huge role in this. And now with the Schwartz Center and Project Olympus, but we still have a lot of work to do. Not to mention that the nature of relationship with the private sector is also rapidly changing as a result of the pace of advances that we're seeing. So this is something that we're going to continue to work on, especially with Teresa's leadership. A couple of last very quick questions. By the way, we started late, so we can't go late. I know you have a flight to catch. But
That's not how it works. We started late so we can, I got it, okay. Universities, I'm telling you.
Of course.
Did you know that when I was here, there were faculty meetings that had no end time? Like that was a thing. And I'm like, there has no end time?
I think as university president, I can't advocate for that, but I think we still have faculty meetings that have no end time. So, listen, you have a reputation. You've grabbed some national headline for this.
I hope it's good, whatever you're about to say.
It's good. You advocate for hard work, but also you advocate for having fun in the workplace and enjoying the environment. What is a fun stipend at Duolingo?
I mean,
how do I get one of those?
No, but you don't work there. You could come work for us. Let's see.
We'll see how it goes after this interview, but go ahead.
Look, it's not just a fun time. I mean, one of our operating principles is we have 5 operating principles. One of them is make it fun. And for that, we mean both the product and the company. And part of the reason for the company is, look, we are inherently doing something that people, even though they may tell you they want to do, they don't actually want to do, which is learn something. It's like most people, your average person, would much rather just spend time watching TikTok. Like that is just how it is. So we need to make it fun for people to actually do that. But internally, we want to have a fun culture that generates this fun thing. So we try to do a lot of fun things. We do have a budget for people to do. It's basically $100 a month, I believe, where you can start clubs and stuff like that. So we have a budget for that. But we have a really fun work environment. I'll say, one of the interesting things that recently happened, the chess team. We have a team that does chess at Duolingo for our chess course. Seceded from the office. And they keep sending us official communications about how they seceded. It's all in fun. And our Detroit office is interceding and trying to be a diplomatic mediator between them. So it's like a whole thing. So, this is the type of fun that we have.
That's great.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm going to have your department should secede from it. No,
I can see how this
reality.
is going to work. Engineering college is raising their hand already. So
don't secede.
Yeah.
You're not Texas, okay?
I know you like tacos.
I love tacos.
And
they are the most American of foods.
Yes. And I remember you telling me not too long ago, there are not enough good Mexican restaurants in Pittsburgh. And remember, I went to school at Texas, so I know exactly what you mean. I did manage to go to the Duo restaurant that's right down the road from here and at where your offices are. So how did that lead? What happened? Is that part of Duolingo?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a taco restaurant. It is at the Duolingo office. It is open to the public. You can go there. It's not free. You have to pay.
By the way, I just tried it. It's fabulous.
Look, it's the best tacos
really
in
good.
town. It's the best tacos in town. I'm not biased or anything, but they're the best tacos in town. I'll tell you, when I moved to Pittsburgh, not only was it cold, it's like the one place in the world where there are, and I'll say this because I'm also Latino, where there are basically no Latin people. And at the time, the way I thought about it is, where are the Mexicans?
Yeah.
By the time, when Yelp finally came out, which I don't know what year that was, the #1 Mexican restaurant in Pittsburgh was Taco Bell. Like that was the #1 ranked Mexican restaurant in Pittsburgh, which is insane. Yeah. So I thought, we're finally in a position to do something about it. So we decided to start our own taco restaurant. It is excellent, and it is a pet project of mine. It loses money, so our CFO doesn't love it. But it doesn't lose. The good news is it doesn't lose a lot of money. It just loses a little bit of money. But the reason it loses money is because the ingredients are really good. And in Pittsburgh, it's kind of hard, particularly tacos. It's hard to charge a lot for tacos because people kind of expect like $1 tacos. These are not $1, but they are cheaper than the ingredients, is what I'll tell you. So we lose a little bit of money.
So, by the way, it really is terrific. And we have a couple of more good Mexican restaurants now, unlike years ago. But
no.
But I had to get it out there because I know that
Farnam,
you're very possive about this issue.
No, Farnam. Here's the thing about Guatemala. You know how it's under Guatemala is Mexico's Mexico.
Yeah, I see.
That's where I'm from. Okay, so I'm extra Mexican. I'll tell you that.
Okay, so with that, What's a perfect taco?
If you ask me, what matters the most is the tortilla.
Oh, wow.
That is what matters. Making the chicken, anybody can make chicken. What matters the most is the tortilla. At our taco restaurant, we hand make and nixtamalize the tortillas right there.
Yeah.
The fact that I know the word nixtamalize should tell you.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really quite good. I think your
Don't
restaurant
say about
is
other
going to do
restaurants.
well.
Don't say about other restaurants.
I think your restaurant is going to do really well with this advertising.
This is it. Everyone go there.
Watching this on live stream. Folks, we're just about out of time. I want to have... Yeah, we're just about out of time. So I want to ask one final question, a serious question.
Please.
And I often ask this when we have invited guests, but you're one of us. You spent so many years here on campus. We have a number of students in the audience. I know a number of students are watching this on live stream because we advertised it. Think about it that we have drama students, we have computer science students, engineering students, and so on. If you could travel back a couple of decades when you were in college, what couple of pieces of advice would you have for our students when you think about yourself at that stage in your journey?
I'll give advice that is very much where I could have done better. When I was in college, I spent most of my college time really learning as much as I could kind of academically. That's kind of what I spent all my time on. I was a really good student. I went nuts with the books. I did a lot. And I kind of thought that this is what I needed to do, just learn as much math as I could, et cetera. And look, it's paid off. Of course, I'm very happy that I learned all of that. But at the time, I really thought that learning kind of people skills was, I'll be honest, it sounds terrible, but this is what I thought at the time. I was very confused. I thought that was beneath me to learn people skills. I'm like, who needs that? Like, I didn't respect that, really. That was a major mistake on my end. The reality is that at this point, my job is almost entirely dealing with people and people problems. And I wish that I had done spent more time not only taking like psychology courses, which that helps a lot, but just kind of developing a little more as like a people leader. I wish that I had done that. It took me a very long time to get better at that. I have an interesting story. The first person that I had to fire, this was at Duolingo, I was so bad at firing them that they came back the next day. Because they did not understand that they were being fired. Because I was like, I can't hurt their feelings, so I'm going to sugarcoat it. But I sugarcoated it so much that they came back the next day. And then this is the incredible part, is that I fired them again, and still I failed. I had to fire them a third time when I had to go read like on Google how to fire somebody. And I learned a very important thing, that you should start by saying, we're going to have to let you go. Like, you start with that as opposed to whatever the hell this I did. Anyways, learn more people skills is the advice that I would give. Certainly the math and computer nerds. I think they end up paying off.
Well, that's great, Buzz. Folks, please join me in thanking Luis for being here. I do have one more request. This is our 125th anniversary of the university, and this is a kickoff event. So I talked to Luis, and he's agreed. As you know, we do a lot of selfies around campus. Students do a lot of selfies with me and others. So Luis has agreed to be in a selfie with all of you that we're going to take right now.
In parallel, not in serious.
Everybody ready for this? Yeah. All right, let's do it. We're going to do one from this side of the stage, another one from the other side.
It's an actual selfie that you will take.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Without a stick. Okay.
Oh, without a selfie stick. Trust me on this, my friend. Here we go. Okay. Uh-oh, the lights. Oh, the lights. Somebody is going to have to turn down the lights. What's that? We get it? Okay, because we tried this earlier today. And it kind of, what's that? Here we go. It's a little better.
I'm getting an email.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm getting an email. Here we go. Ready? Let's do one from the other side. All right, come on. You know, I do this during commencement.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
But I have a selfie stick for that. Here. Ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, great. Oh, this is going to be even better. Oh my God, this is a masterpiece. Folks, once again, please join me. There's your owl.
What, we were told, okay.
So we were told that we will have these stuffed animals, and Luis has agreed to throw this in the audience, and somebody, don't hurt yourself though, trying to go for it. Go for it.
I was literally told to throw this.
Hey, your team agreed to this. I had no role in this. I don't usually throw stuffed animals at people. There we go.
Okay.
I'm gonna do the Scotty dog on this side of the room. Here we go. Once again,
they got rid of it.
Folks, please join us for the reception outside. Thank you again for being here. Pleasure to have you here. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.